So again, let's talk about bourbon. What is bourbon whiskey? What is the difference between bourbon and whiskey itself? Bourbon, what constitutes a bourbon is the mash bill. What is a mash bill? Basically what the mash bill is it's the grains, the mix of grains that's used to make a bourbon or a whiskey. So what constitutes a bourbon is the mash bill has to contain at least 51% corn. That's the separation between bourbon and just whiskey. And that's it. It's as simple as that. What do I constitute a good beginner bourbon? One, accessibility. Like anything that's accessible. Like you can go to your local liquor store and just get it and be done with it. Accessibility. Two, proof. Your more accessible, your more beginner friendly bourbons will probably be lower in proof. I want to say around the 90 proof range, where it's like smooth drinking. You don't feel really hardly any bite. I'd say you don't get that. You don't get as much of a hug. You'll get somewhat of a Kentucky/Tennessee hug, depending on where your bourbon's from. But you won't get as much of it as your higher proofier bourbons. It doesn't have to be hazmat for you to get a hug. Like I say hazmat bourbon's about like 135, I'd say. So we're talking 45%ish. In terms of ABV, yeah, 45% ABV, around that. So yeah, accessibility, proof. Generally like enjoyability. Honestly, it's like, I mean, it's and that's going to differ from person to person in terms of taste. Aroma, things like that, and we'll talk about it. So I have four. I wanted to do 5, but it's hard to find Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace, really good beginner bourbon. Couldn't find it. Some people allocate it. I don't know why. It's Buffalo Trace. So if you can find Buffalo Trace, that's a good starter one. That is a really good starter one. I recommend it to everyone who wants to get into bourbon. We're going to start with one I definitely consider to be an entry level, and that is, if it'll catch the focus, Evan Williams 1783 small batch. Now you'll see Evan Williams pretty much in any liquor store, kind of near mid to bottom shelf. And the reason I put this over like just general Evan Williams, because general Evan Williams will have a bit more of a bite to it. This one I feel is good for starters. Is good as a starter. So, bit of background. I like to read the background on the back of the bottle. Evan Williams earned the title Kentucky's first distiller in 1783, when he began his distillery on the banks of the Ohio River. Today, that pioneering heritage is honored in the crafting of this special small batch bourbon. After fully maturing, a limited number of barrels are then specifically chosen and mingled to just the right taste. The result is a genuine classic, smooth, rich, and worthy of its name. And again, it's we'll catch it, 90 proof, 45% ABV. As far as your aroma, whenever you get it, it's got a little bit of a vanilla, like a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of oakiness. If you ever smelled like butter like in a pan, sauteing in a pan, kind of that smell too. It's got a good aroma, got a good nose to it. And then when you taste it, you get a little bit of honey. You get that oak. You get the honey in the middle. Like, you get some sweetness at first, but then you kind of get more of the honey in the middle, and then it finishes. It's a really soft finish. It finishes like dry a little bit. So it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's pretty much you taste it, and like the finish isn't there. Like, no hug, hardly any bite. Yeah, even after a second sip, I'm trying to like get more of a finish, and like it just leaves. It's a really soft finish. And what I mean by that is some bourbons will have, when it goes down, you'll get that hug, and it'll kind of stay with you in terms of taste and everything. It'll kind of linger. You'll still have that taste, kind of like in the back of your throat. And then you'll have the warmness in your chest. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm out. That's pretty much it. Like, and there are like a lot of bourbons that have a finish that's like really, really quick, really, really short finish. It's like, all right, I'm good. And some people like it. Some people like it. And then in terms of the mouthfeel, again, another thing with bourbons is mouthfeel. This one's a little bit more viscous, I'd say. It's a little bit thicker than most bourbons. Yeah, after every sip, I'm kind of looking for that finish. I'm like, nope, not gonna get it. And that's okay. I mean, if you want like a really, again, it's a really simple but yet good bourbon. Like, again, beginner friendly, not a lot of bite on it. Like, it has a little bit of bite, and again, 90 proof is going to be where a lot of your beginner friendly bourbons are. Hell, there's some, bourbons that are like not beginner friendly, that are 90 proof. When it comes to proof in terms of my bourbons, I like to sit in the 115-ish area, 115, 120, kind of like what Old Forester does a lot of, especially like 1920, Old Forester, like that 115, 118. Yeah, that's a good sweet spot for me, because like I like a little bit of proof. Well, I'll drink some hazmat bourbon that's like 135, 140. Sure, it's gonna have some bite to it, but yeah. But again, really good starter. Again, Evan Williams, 1783. And if you like that, you can kind of fish around with more with Evan Williams. There are a few other good Evan Williams. Yeah, Heaven Hill Distillery is the one who does Evan Williams right now. And Heaven Hill does a lot of good stuff. Heaven Hill does, Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond. They do Henry McKenna. They do Larceny, Parker's Heritage. What else am I thinking of? Rittenhouse Rye, I think. I want to say that's it. Larceny is another good one. Like, Larceny is a really good one once you really get into bourbon. Larceny is a good one. Speaking of more Heaven Hill, I somehow with my beginner bourbon picked 2 Heaven Hill. Yeah, like I didn't really think about it when I was picking it out. But the next one, again, another Heaven Hill. And you can really what you can kind of tell by the branding, and I'll show you in a second. This is Elijah Craig small batch. Small batch, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 94 proof. It's a 47% ABV. Elijah Craig, it says on the front of the bottle, Elijah Craig, father of bourbon. First to char in oak barrels. Made in true small batches for balance and smoothness. 94 proof. $17.89. Now, there are quite a few Elijah Craigs. You have your small batch. You have single barrel, straight rye, toasted barrel, which is probably my favorite of the Elijah Craig. I love Elijah Craig toasted barrel. Barrel proof. And there's so much more. Since there's not really much on the bottle, on the website, they say the award-winning bourbon that started it all. Our signature small batch owes its distinctive warm spice and subtle smoke flavor to level 3 charred oak barrels. Handcrafted by our master distillers, it's a favorite of bourbon connoisseurs and casual whiskey fans alike. So good old Elijah. Good old Elijah. Gotta love that pop. Now, I would say, well, let's talk about this first before we get into where to go from here. So I should show you the color. If it wants to pick it up. Come on, there you go. So as you can see, it's kind of got like a copper color. And then you get the nose. The nose is a bit complex on this one. It's got a bit of fruitiness, but like you get like a hint of mint, hint of like vanilla. Little bit of oak. but it's that mint that kind of makes it like really unique. Not in a bad way, but it's just that little cut of mint in the aroma makes it a little bit unique. Okay, to your health. All right. So in the front, you're getting, you get like, it's smooth. It's really smooth. And a lot of your bourbons in this range are going to be smooth. Get some baking spice. Some nutmeg, you know, some baking spice. Honey, a little bit of honey. A little bit of that oakiness. And the finish, this is a finish I like. It finishes really sweet. Like you get that honey on the back end and it's still there. It's still there. This is a longer finish. Doesn't quite give me a well, let me go for a second sip. No hug, but it's a long finish. Like it persists with you. And you'll like, once you start tasting bourbon, you'll see like what I mean by it. Like it's a long finish and it persists because it's still there. It's still there. Kind of like Evan Williams, that just left. It just leaves you. And this, it's still there. It's kind of starting to taper off a bit, you know, as I talk about it, but it's a way longer finish than Evan Williams. And I like that in bourbon. I like to have a bourbon that like kind of persists. In terms of the mouthfeel, it's not as thick as Elijah Craig, but it's like on the border. It's like if I would like separate it into like low, medium, and high. So yeah, outside of small batch, if you want something within the same range, has a little bit more bite, a lot more oakiness, toasted barrel, you cannot go wrong with Elijah Craig toasted barrel. I promise you. Like if you start out with small batch and you like small batch, you're going to love toasted barrel. Elijah Craig toasted barrel. It's like really easy drinking. It's got a little bit of a bite because of the oakiness, but I like that bite. And it's a lower proof bite. So it's like Elijah Craig barrel proof is, well, not barrel proof. Elijah Craig toast is 94 as well. So yeah, it's the same proof, but it's got a little bit more bite because of the oakiness. Yeah, oakiness is not going to be a problem for you now. No. It's what I'm saying is like because of the oakiness, it seems more proofy than it is, and that's what I like about it. It's like a unconceived like proofiness. Like you just don't think it's there, but it's there. I'm like, oh, this is good, and it's only 94 proof. Okay, sure. Favorite any day bourbon is probably Penelope. I need to get in some Architect. I got some barrel proof Penelope in the other room, in my media room. But I love Penelope. I love Penelope. For a really I don't even say they're up and coming anymore. Like they're coming. They're coming. They're here. Like Penelope is a younger distillery, but at the same time, it's like they've cemented their name. Like it's really good. It's really good. Like Penelope. Let's talk about them roses. Let's talk about them roses. Four Roses small batch, and as you can see, I've kind of polished a little bit of it off because I love Four Roses. I love Four Roses, and the roses are great. Like it's a great bourbon. It is a great again, in terms of a beginner, this is really good. And that's why I included it. So I like one thing about bourbon I love is the stories that come with the bourbon. For those of you who don't know the story of Four Roses. Well, it's called Four Roses. I have it here. For those of you who aren't familiar with the story, it began when Paul Jones Jr., the founder of Four Roses Bourbon, became smitten with the beauty of a Southern belle. It is said that he sent a proposal to her, and she replied that if her answer were yes, she would wear the corsage of roses on her gown to the upcoming grand ball. Paul Jones waited for her answer excitedly on the night of that grand ball. When she arrived in her beautiful gown, she wore a corsage of 4 red roses. He later named his bourbon Four Roses as a symbol of devout passion for the lovely belle, a passion he thereafter transferred to making his beloved Four Roses bourbon. It's a really kick-ass story. It's a really like the veracity of the story. I don't know. Like we don't even know the Southern Belle's name, but we do know it started with a, do you like me? Yeah, no. I'll wear some roses if I like you. And she did. 4. So she must have really liked them. Yeah. Damn. Four Roses. Four Roses is probably one of the more popular bourbon brands in America right now. Again. And I love their bottles. I truly love Four Roses. Like their bottles are so good. This Four Roses. What they say at Four Roses, for a spirits enthusiast who wants a go-to premium bourbon, Four Roses small batch is a perfectly balanced everyday bourbon that elevates every moment to a special occasion. 90 proof, age 6 to 7 years. Now, the thing about Four Roses bourbon, when you get up to their single barrel strength, they have so many mash bills for their single barrel strength. No, even for their single barrel, they have like a bunch of different mash bills that incorporate different flavors. And that's what I like about like Four Roses. Like they're so diverse within their own bourbon. They're so diverse within their own bourbon. It's not even funny. And eat like, and I'll talk about that in a little while because I do have single barrel, so we'll talk about it. Think you'll try it just for the story? Nice. The Four Roses. Distilled and aged by Four Roses Distillery, LLC, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. I've always wanted, like, this is one of the ones I've always wanted to visit besides, you know, Old Forester. So, Lottie, for this Four Roses, I wouldn't say as complex as single barrel. I wouldn't say as complex. All right, so on the nose, you get a little bit of caramel on the nose. You get some fruit. A little bit of oakiness. I like the caramel more than anything. It's a really pleasant aroma. I can smell that all day. That is so good. It's so fucking good. Oh my God. You can get this at a Target down the street. Yeah, you sure can. I get a little bit of apple too. All right, to your health. Again, with this one, it's not a lot of bite. Not a lot of bite on this one. It's a 90 proofer. 90 proof, aged 6 to 7 years. Not a lot of bite on it. So what I get from it, like, I get the baking spice. I get that fruitiness that I got in the aroma. It's like when you taste it, you get a lot at the front. And then it's like I'd say a medium finish. Like, it finishes a little citrusy. It finishes a little citrusy at the end. Is that front? And a little bit of oak at the end too. A little bit of oak at the end. So a little citrus, little oak at the end. Yeah. You're with bourbon, a lot of your nose notes and your tasting notes are going to differ completely. And that's okay. Like, what you may smell, you might not taste. Sometimes you will taste it. Like, a lot of times, the one smell and taste that will correlate will be the oak. That will be the main thing. You will taste and smell the barrel. And that's okay. Like, that's intended. But in terms of more complex bourbons, you're gonna get it like a really concrete smell, and then you taste it, and then you get like this whole explosion that you weren't expecting. But yeah, with this, Like at the front end, again, the front end, like it comes in really strong. You know, I get the fruit, I get like the baking spices, I get the, like some, I would say, need to go in for a third. Like berries at the front. Berries at the front and then citrus in the back, which is like really good. It's a really good combination for me. Like berry, like a berry front, citrus back. And yeah, like I said, the finish is kind of like a medium. I'd say like a medium finish. And in terms of the mouthfeel, in terms of like the viscosity mouthfeel, I'd say that the mouthfeel is a medium as well. So again, really easy to find. Four Roses you can find anywhere. You can find Four Roses anywhere. And this, again, in my opinion, would be your starter Four Roses. Small batch. This would be a good starter. If you just want to sip, enjoy some tunes, you know, sip, have some charcuterie, have some, and I feel like this would pair well. I feel like this like pairs really well with, you know, chocolate covered strawberries. Because it's been a couple of bougie anime nights since I've done chocolate covered strawberries. Like the last one I did was charcuterie. What was the other one I did? The other one I did, I think, was chocolate covered strawberries. But still, like, yeah, I feel like this one pairs really well with chocolate covered strawberries or fruit in general. All right. Next up, the fourth and final of my, I say fourth, but it's the fifth. Like I said, Buffalo Trace, really good. Buffalo Trace is a really good starter if you can find it. Like a lot of places, Buffalo Trace is accessible. Some places it's not. Here, it's just not for some fucking reason. Like again, like I think Buffalo Trace hates us in the Carolinas. But one that is, I think, highly accessible in terms of highly accessible and just a good all-around beginner bourbon. Woodford Reserve. Good old Woodford Reserve. What is there to say about Woodford? Woodford is one of my, Woodford has always been one of my go-tos. Woodford's rye, even though I don't do a lot of ryes, Woodford's rye is really good. That's in the media room. Woodford double oaked. If and when you get past the point of like, okay, I'm out of the beginner phase. I want something with a little more bite, you know, a little more oakiness. Woodford double oaked. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. This Woodford has not even, like, the label's still, like, the tape is still on it. I haven't even opened this Woodford. So if you look at the label will tell you everything. This label right here will tell you everything you need to know. So I can't read it right now. Label batch 9856, bottle number 8117. Selected by master distiller Chris Morris. 45.2 alcohol per volume. 90.4 proof. Proprietary batch. Well, if it'll focus, yeah, there we go. It's kind of hard to see the bottom label because of the light. There we go. Yep. So Woodford. Woodford's been in a business for so long. I feel like Woodford is a good, Woodford always makes a good, I'd say any of these would make a good mixing bourbon, but if I were to choose a mixing bourbon, Woodford would be the mixing bourbon. Woodford would be my like number one mixing bourbon. Like if you wanted to make, I don't know, anything, like Woodford makes a really good mixing bourbon. Like if you wanted to make a bourbon cocktail, you could really use anything, but I'd say Woodford. I'd say Woodford 100%. That's my endorsement. The others mainly for drinking. And yeah, you could use any of these for mixing, but take Sly's advice for making a bourbon cocktail, Woodford. Hands down. Hell, I can give you one right now. Straight from the Woodford recipe book, the Woodford Spire, 1.5 ounces of Woodford bourbon whiskey, 2 ounces of lemonade, one ounce of cranberry. Like stir in a mixing glass and then add to whatever glass you want and maybe garnish with a lemon. Boom. But beyond it being a good mixing bourbon, it is a good bourbon, period. Stand by for cork pop. So this is, give it, yeah. So the color is really nice. I like the color on Woodford. Kind of got this like a little honey shine. A little honey shine, I like it. I like it. So, get the glass coated. Oh. Okay, so immediately I get like fruit, like dried fruit. A little bit of mint, some kind of baking spice, a little bit. Vanilla, I get vanilla in there. Can I get a little bit of leather too? I like that leather smell though, like a freshly bound book. Like, yeah, I love that leather smell. I love it. Yeah, I can't get enough of the smell. Like, it's so good. All right, to your health. It starts out with a little bit of like cinnamon. And then like I get a little bit of citrus in the middle. And then to round it out, like I get almost like a sundae. It's almost like a sundae a little bit. Like I get some chocolate. I get some like either like cocoa or chocolate or caramel and caramel. And it's persisting. I'm kind of waiting. Yeah, it's kind of a long finish. It's kind of a long finish on this one. Yeah, it's kind of a long finish on this one. And it's a creamy finish too. And that's what I mean by like it finishes like a sundae a little bit. Yeah, like again, Woodford's good. Woodford is really good. Yeah, it starts out cinnamony, and then like the middle is like a little bit of citrus, and then when you get to the back of it, it's just like a creamy sundae of like chocolate and caramel. Again, it is damn tasty. And again, it's a 90.4 proof, so it's not gonna like bite you. I mean, there's a little bit of a bite, but it's not like, again, it's like the others, like it's almost non-existent. But god damn, that finish though is just, oh, that finish is so good. I mean, I've already finished it. Like it's got like a tiny bit of bite on the back end, but like otherwise this is really smooth. It's really in terms of like mouthfeel, it's smooth. It is smooth. So it like, out of all these, all of the beginner ones, this one probably runs like in terms of like the bite, in terms of like a little bit of heat. It's got a little bit of like a heat on the back. So it might feel a little proofy, but it's not proofy. It's 90.4. It's not that proofy. It's not that proofy, but like, you know, we can, there's several ways we could do this. There's one I want to talk about, since we were talking about Four Roses. I do, like I said, I do love me some Four Roses. New Belgium. Shout out to New Belgium. Shout out to our good folks at Voodoo Ranger, aka New Belgium Brewery. Every year, New Belgium does a special release with Four Roses, and it's called Oakspire. So, again, this beer good. This some good beer. This some good beer. I'm not saying that because I'm sponsored by New Belgium and Voodoo. It is some good beer. It's some good beer. Good beer. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. If you can find it at a Total Wine or anywhere, usually Total Wine is like your best bet. If they're gonna have it right now, Total Wine's your best bet. But if we were gonna like step up a little bit in terms of Four Roses, it would be this. As you can see, I polished out a bit of this bottle, but Four Roses single barrel. Four Roses single barrel. Let me point out let me give you the bottom of it. Okay. So the warehouse number is NS. And that's not really a number, those are two letters. And the barrel number is 452Q. If you can't see it. Warehouse number NS. Focus. Warehouse number NS 452Q for the barrel number. Now, how to read that? The first letter of the warehouse number identifies which warehouse the barrel was stored. Okay. The second part of that tells you which side of the warehouse that was stored. So north, south, east, west. So NS in south side of N warehouse. The first part of the barrel number is the RIC number. The RIC number is the RIC where the barrel was stored in the warehouse. So RIC 45. The 2 is the tier of the RIC. So it was stored on the second tier. And then the Q is the position number. So the position of the barrel within the tier. So the first barrel in the warehouse is listed as A, and it goes from B all the way down. So this was Q. So yeah, that's how if you want to learn how to read a single barrel label, if you ever get some single barrel strength, just single barrel select, there you go. That's how you read it. That's how you read your Four Roses single barrel labels. From the Four Roses website, for someone who wants more of a more complex bourbon experience, Four Roses single barrel is a 100 proof bourbon that embodies the uniqueness of an individual barrel, which has been hand selected by our master distiller. It achieves a pronounced yet elegant flavor that's worth savoring. Aged 7 to 9 years. Four Roses Distillery, LLC, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Do a small pour, because I want to do one other thing. All right. So this is one of my fatter Glens. This is the Glen I got with a bottle of Jack, with a single barrel Jack. Glencairn Crystal still, which is a fatter Glen. Now with this advanced, okay, this goes beyond beginner bourbon. Like, I just want to point out like what the next step for a Four Roses would be. So on the nose, I get some cinnamon. I get some cherry, like some dark cherry. Some vanilla, some oak, maple syrup, a little bit of maple syrup too. And if you want to see the color, again, this is a fatter Glen. It's got that like honeyish color. To your health. And I get that cherry. I get that cherry immediately. I get some apple too. This one gives you a hug, and I like it. And that's why I finished it. That's why I've finished this bottle as much as I have. This one gives you a hug. Going down, gives you that Kentucky hug. It gives you like a little Kentucky hug. Like if a Lalafell, for those who are in the Final Fantasy 14 verse, Lalafell is like a little person. Like they're just a little person. They're adults, but they're little people. If like a Lalafell just gave you a hug, it's a little person hug. It's a good hug. And they just held on for a little bit. If a Crowell gave you a hug and she was just holding on for a bit, yeah, it's a long finish. It's a long finish on this one. It's a really, really long finish, but it's a smooth finish nonetheless. So again, when I talk about that hug, you're gonna either, like, depending on where it's from, you're gonna get like a Tennessee hug, Kentucky hug. Hell, it can be Midwest grain, so it can be like an Ohio hug. I don't know. Like I don't think I'm like that. That feels wrong to say Ohio hug. But there's some bourbons that'll give you a hug going down. Like you'll feel this warmth as it goes down your chest. It gives you like a little bit of a hug on the inside. It gives you a little bit of a hug going down. That's what I like. That's the feeling I like in most of my bourbon. I want my bourbon to just love me. I want my bourbon to love me like I love it. So I want it to give me a hug. But yeah, it's again, this, I feel like, again, going from small batch Four Roses, this would be your next step. Single barrel would be your next step. And again, it's got a little bit more, like, it's 100 proof. It's got a little bit of heat, gives you that hug. It's a warm and gentle hug. Again, with a medium mouthfeel in terms of viscosity. It's not like thick, thick, just thick, you know, with normal thickness. And it's a step up. It's not too proofy. It's just 100 proof, and it's a good drinking bourbon. Really good drinking one. So again, that was like just a step up from one of them, or all of them, you could say. Any questions? Any questions?